Hello, everyone, and welcome to this production of Voices of Yesterday. We're so glad that all of you have joined us this evening. This evening is in aid of the Sugun Thomas Foundation, and I am Sugun Thomas, the founder trustee of the STF. Let me start by giving you a brief background of STF. The Sugun Thomas Foundation started in December 2005 after the unfortunate death of Sugun Thomas in October. His friends and family started this foundation driven by a sense of loss, duty, and faith. The STF provides full support for higher education to brilliant, underprivileged children who have no means of completing college. It follows a well-defined, rigorous process in selecting children and supporting them through their entire education till they get gainfully employed. However, what separates the Sugun Thomas Foundation from other similar organizations is its very effective mentoring program. Each child is assigned a mentor who will be their go-to person during the entire education process. The mentors give them guidance through regular contact, not just on academic and job prospects, but to help the child develop a strong personality and the right attitude and values. The children from these poverty-stricken backgrounds go through different streams of education based on their interests. The foundation has supported engineering students, students of law, medical students, accountants, math, commerce, science students from all the well-known city colleges, and most recently, even a veterinary science student has joined us. So far, 275 students have been covered by STF. After the pandemic, the situation for many of the underprivileged families have been quite hopeless. With the loss of their breadwinner to COVID, or even both parents to COVID, these young children stroke adults have had to face extremely hard decisions and situations while thinking about their education. STF this year has taken on 17 children whose families have been affected by COVID and are taking them through their education and hopefully will help them settle into gainful employment. The only means for raising funds for STF is through donations. We are very, very grateful to Shan Kothari Libby and Tehzeeb Kothari and all the 15 voices who have come together for this cause. Many, many thanks to all of you who have come to attend and support us on behalf of STF. We do hope with greater awareness of this foundation, we will be able to support many more children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Welcome to the Voices of Yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. The first poem of the show is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Robert Frost wrote this poem to poke fun at his friend, Edward Thomas, an English-Welsh poet, who when out walking with him in England would often regret not having taken a different path. Thomas would sigh over what might have been seen and done, and Frost thought this was quaintly romantic. If life is a journey, this poem highlights the choices ahead of the reader and springs ambiguity from the question of free will versus determinism. Here's The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, recited by Shan and Prabha. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth.
Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same.
And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back.
I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere, ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Monkey and the Crocodile is a popular tale from the Panchatantra, set to rhyme by Vikram Seth. It's popular with both school children and adults alike. Today, Susan Thomas, Susan Sudhir, Srikant, and I, Nirupa, will recite The Monkey and the Crocodile by Vikram Seth.
On the Ganga's greenest isle lived Kurup, the crocodile. Greeny brown with scaly skin, stubby legs, and a gentle grin. He would view with tepid eyes prey below a certain size. But when a substantial dish, dolphin, turtle, fatter fish, swam across his field of view, he would test the water too. Out he'd glide, a floating log, silent as a pollywog. Nearer, nearer till his prey swam a single length away. Then he'd lunge with smiling head, grab and snap and rip it dead. Then, prime pleasure of his life, drag the carcass to his wife, lay it humbly at her feet, eat a bit, and watch her eat. All along the river bank, mango trees stood rank on rank, and his monkey friend would throw to him as he swam below mangoes gold and ripe and sweet as a special summer treat.
Crocodile, your wife I know hungers after mangoes so, that she'd pine and weep and swoon, mango-less in burning June.
Then Kurup the crocodile, gazing upwards with a smile, thus addressed his monkey friend.
Dearest monkey, in the end, not the fruit, but your sweet love, showered on us from above, constant through the changing years, slakes her griefs and dries her tears.
This was only partly true. She liked love and mangoes too. One day, Mrs. Crocodile gorged on mangoes with a smile, sad yet tender, turned and said,
Scarykins, since we've been wed, you fulfilled my every wish. Dolphins, turtles, mangoes, fish. But I now desire to eat, as an anniversary treat, something sweeter still than fruit, sugarcane or sugar root. I must eat that monkey's heart.
What?
Well, darling, for a start, he has been so kind to me. Think how sweet his heart must be. Then the mango pulp he's eaten year on year must serve to sweeten further yet each pore and part, concentrating in his heart.
Darling, he's my friend.
I know, and he trusts you. Therefore go. Go at once and fetch him here. Oh, my breath grows faint, I fear.
Let me fan you. It's the heat.
No, I long for something sweet. Every fruit tastes bitter now. I must eat his heart somehow. Get him here, my love, or I, filled with bitterness, will die.
When the monkey saw Kurup, he let out a joyful whoop, jumping from branch to branch with pleasure, flinging down the golden treasure.
Eat, my friend, and take your wife, nectar from the tree of life. Mangoes ripe and mangoes rare. Mangoes, mangoes everywhere.
Then Kurup the crocodile gazed up with a gentle smile.
Monkey, you're far too kind. But today, if you don't mind, dine with both of us and meet her, whose life you've made so sweet. When you meet her, you will see why she means so much to me. When she takes you by the paw, something at your heart will gnaw. When you gaze into her eyes, you will enter paradise. Let us show our gratitude, share our friendship and our food.
Dear Kurup, dear crocodile, you can swim from isle to isle. I can leap from limb to limb. But my friend, I cannot swim. And your island's far away. If I get a boat someday.
Nonsense. Jump upon my back. You're no heavier than my sack, filled with mangoes to the crown.
So the monkey clambered down, bearing mangoes, and delighted with such warmth to be invited. They were just halfway across when the crocodile said,
Toss all those mangoes in the water.
But these fruits are all I've brought her.
You are gift enough?
Said Kurup in accents gruff.
Ah, my friend, that's very gracious. Well, my wife's not so voracious, and I'm certain that today she won't eat fruit. By the way, tell me what your breast contains. Mango nectar fills your veins. Does it also fill your heart?
Said the monkey with a start.
What a curious question.
Well, she might get indigestion. If it's too rich, I suspect.
What?
Your heart.
My heart?
Correct. Now,
Kurup said with a frown.
which would you prefer? To drown in the Ganga or to be gutted by my wife and me? I will let you choose your end. After all, you are my friend.
Then he slowly started sinking.
Wait. The monkey said, I'm thinking. Death by drowning, death by slaughter, death by land, or death by water. I'd face either with a smile for your sake, O crocodile. But your wife's felicity, that's what means the most to me. Noble lady, how she'll freeze dumb with sorrow when she sees, having prized my ribs apart, that my breast contains no heart. If you had not rushed me so, I'd have found the time to go to the hollow where I keep heart and liver when I sleep. Half my brain, a fingernail, cufflinks, chutney, and a spare tail. I had scarcely woken up when you asked me here to sup. Why did you not speak before? I'd have fetched them from the shore.
Now Kurup the crocodile, lost, then quickly found his smile.
How my sweetheart will upbraid me. Monkey, monkey, you must aid me.
Well,
The monkey placed his paw thoughtfully upon his jaw.
well, although the day is hot, and I'd really rather not, we could go back, fetch my heart, check its sweetness, and depart.
So the crocodile once more swam the monkey back to shore, and with tears of thankfulness mingled with concern and stress, worried of what his wife would say with regard to his delay, begged his friend.
Come back at once.
I'm not such a double dance.
Yelled the monkey from on high.
Tell your scaly wife to try eating her own wicked heart, if she has one, for a start. Mine's been beating in my breast night and day without a rest. Tell her that. And as for you, here's your parting gift.
He threw mangoes, squishy, rotten, dead, down upon the reptile's head, who, with a regretful smile, sat and eyed him for a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One Art was written by the American poet Elizabeth Bishop. Through this form, the poem explores loss as an inevitable part of life. The speaker considers what it means to experience loss over and over again, and whether it is truly possible to master the experience of loss and grief. One Art, brought to you by
Amira De Costa
and Balaji Murthy.
The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seemed filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster.
Lose something every day. Accept the fluster of lost door keys. They are badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master.
Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names, and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster.
I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master.
I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster. Some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster.
Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love. I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth, recited by Annie and myself, Manasa. Often referred to as daffodils, this is one of England's most famous and most quintessentially romantic poems. This poem was inspired by an event on 15th April 1802, when Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy came across a long belt of daffodils in the Lake District where they lived at the time. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance.
The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought.
For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have The Naming of Cats by T.S. Eliot. The Naming of Cats is a poem by T.S. Eliot written in 1939 and adapted into Andrew Lloyd Webber's famous musical Cats. It describes to humans how cats get their names. The naming of cats is a difficult matter. It isn't just one of your holiday games. You may think at first that I'm mad as a catter when I tell you a cat must have 3 different names. First of all, there's the name that the family use daily, such as Peter, Augustus, Alonzo, or James, such as Victor or Jonathan, George or Bill Bailey, all of them sensible, everyday names. There are fancier names if you think they sound sweeter, some for the gentlemen and some for the dames, such as Plato, Admetus, Electra, Demeter. but all of them sensible, everyday names. But I tell you, a cat needs a name that's particular, a name that's peculiar and more dignified. Else, how can he keep up his tail perpendicular, or spread out his whiskers, or cherish his pride? Of names of this kind, I can give you a quorum, such as Munkastrap, Quackso, or Coricopat, such as Bambalorina, or else Jellylorum, names that never belong to more than one cat. But above and beyond, there's still one name left over. And that is the name you never will guess. The name that no human research can discover, but the cat himself knows and will never confess. When you notice a cat in profound meditation, the reason I tell you is always the same. His mind is engaged in a rapt contemplation of the thought of his name, his ineffable, effable, ineffable, deep and inscrutable singular name. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight, Roshan, Shan, and Nikki will be reading The Lady of Shalott by Alfred Lord Tennyson. This poem was first published in 1832 when Tennyson was only 23 years old in a volume called Poems. It is about a woman who lives alone in a tower on the island of Shalott upstream from King Arthur's castle at Camelot. Because of a curse, the lady must stay in her tower and weave pictures of the outside world by looking only at the reflections in a mirror. On either side the river lie long fields of barley and of rye that clothe the world and meet the sky. And through the field the road runs by to many-towered Camelot. And up and down the people go, gazing where the lilies blow, round an island there below, the island of Shalott. Willows whiten, aspens quiver, little breezes dusk and shiver through the wave that runs forever by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot. 4 grey walls and 4 grey towers overlook a space of flowers, and the silent isle embowers the Lady of Shalott.
By the margin, willow veiled, slide the heavy barges trailed, by slow horses and unhailed, the shallop flitteth silken sailed, skimming down to Camelot. But who hath seen her wave her hand, or at the casement seen her stand? Or is she known in all the land, the Lady of Shalott? Only reapers reaping early, in among the bearded barley, hear a song that echoes cheerly, from the river winding clearly, down to towered Camelot. And by the moon the reaper weary, piling sheaves in uplands airy, listening whispers, "'Tis the fairy Lady of Shalott."
There she weaves by night and day, a magic web with colors gay. She has heard a whisper say, a curse is on her if she stay to look down to Camelot. She knows not what the curse may be, and so she weaveth steadily, and little other care hath she, the Lady of Shalott. And moving through a mirror clear that hangs before her all the year, shadows of the world appear. There she sees the highway near, winding down to Camelot. And there the river eddy whirls, and there the surly village churls, and the red cloaks of market girls pass onward from Shalott.
Sometimes a troop of damsels glad, an abbot on an ambling pad, sometimes a curly shepherd lad, or long-haired page in crimson clad goes by to towered Camelot, and sometimes through the mirror blue the knights come riding two and two. She hath no loyal knight or true, the Lady of Shalott.
But in her web she still delights to weave the mirror's magic sights, for often through the silent nights a funeral with plumes and lights and music went to Camelot. Or when the moon was overhead, came two young lovers lately wed. I'm half sick of shadows, said the Lady of Shalott.
A bow shot from her bower eaves. He rode between the barley sheaves. The sun came dazzling through the leaves and flamed upon the brazen greaves of bold Sir Lancelot. A red cross knight forever kneeled to a lady in his shield, the sparkled on the yellow field beside remote Shalott. The gemmy bridle glittered free, like to some branch of stars we see, hung in the golden galaxy. The bridal bells rang merrily as he rode down to Camelot, and from his blazoned baldric slung a mighty silver bugle hung, and as he rode his armour rung beside remote Shalott.
All in the blue unclouded weather, thick jewels shone the saddle leather. The helmet and the helmet feather burned like one burning flame together as he rode down to Camelot. As often through the purple night, below the starry clusters bright, some bearded meteor, trailing light, moves over still Shalott.
His broad clear brow in sunlight glowed. On burnished hooves his war horse trode. From underneath his helmet flowed. His coal black curls as on he rode down to Camelot. From the bank and from the river, he flashed into the crystal mirror. Tira lira by the river, sang Sir Lancelot.
She left the web, she left the loom. She made 3 paces through the room. She saw the water lily bloom. She saw the helmet and the plume. She looked down to Camelot. The mirror cracked from side to side. Out flew the web and floated wide. The mirror cracked from side to side. The curse has come upon me, cried the Lady of Shalott. In the stormy east wind straining, the pale yellow woods were waning, the broad stream in his banks complaining, heavily the low sky raining over towered Camelot. Down she came and found a boat, beneath a willow left afloat, and round about the prow she wrote, the Lady of Shalott.
And down the river's dim expanse, like some bold seer in a trance, seeing all his own mischance, with a glassy countenance, did she look down to Camelot. And at the closing of the day, she loosed the chain, and down she lay. The broad stream bore her far away, the Lady of Shalott.
Lying robed in snowy white, that loosely flew to left and right, the leaves upon her falling light, through the noises of the night, she floated down to Camelot. And as the boat head wound along, the willowy hills and fields among, they heard her singing her last song, the Lady of Shalott.
Heard a carol, mournful, holy, chanted loudly, chanted lowly, till her blood was frozen slowly, and her eyes were darkened wholly, turned to towered Camelot, for ere she reached upon the tide, the first house by the waterside, singing in her song, she died, the Lady of Shalott.
Under tower and balcony, by garden wall and gallery, a gleaming shape she floated by, dead pale between the houses high, silent into Camelot. Out upon the wharfs they came, knight and burgher, lord and dame, and round the prow they read her name, the Lady of Shalott.
Who is this? And what is here? And in the lighted palace near died the sound of royal cheer, and they crossed themselves for fear all the nights at Camelot. But Lancelot mused a little space. He said, she has a lovely face. God in his mercy lend her grace, the Lady of Shalott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have The Walrus and the Carpenter by Lewis Carroll. Published in 1871 as part of Through the Looking Glass, this piece was recited to Alice by Tweedledum and Tweedledee. The Walrus and the Carpenter, recited by Tehzeeb Katari and Arjun Chakravarti. The sun was shining on the sea, shining with all his might, and this was odd because it was the middle of the night.
The moon was shining sulkily because she thought the sun had got no business to be there after the day was done. It's very rude of him, she said, to come and spoil the fun. The walrus and the carpenter were walking close at hand. They wept like anything to see such quantities of sand. If only this were cleared away, they said, it would be grand.
If 7 maids with 7 mops swept it for half a year, do you suppose, the walrus said, that they could get it clear?
I doubt it, said the carpenter, and shed a bitter tear.
Oh, oysters, come and walk with us, the walrus did beseech. A pleasant walk, a pleasant talk upon the briny beach. We cannot do with more than 4 to give a hand to each.
The eldest oyster looked at him, but never a word, he said. The eldest oyster winked his eye and shook his heavy head, meaning to say he did not choose to leave the oyster bed. But 4 young oysters hurried up, all eager for a treat. Their coats were brushed, their faces washed, their shoes were clean and neat. And this was odd, because, you know, they hadn't any feet.
4 other oysters followed them, and yet another 4. And thick and fast they came at last, and more and more and more. The time has come, the walrus said, to talk of many things. Shoes and ships and sealing wax, and cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. A loaf of bread, the walrus said, is what we chiefly need. Pepper and vinegar besides are very good indeed. Now, if you're ready, oysters dear, we can begin to feed.
But not on us, the oysters cried, turning a little blue. After such kindness, that would be a dismal thing to do. It was so kind of you to come, and you are very nice. The carpenter said nothing but, cut us another slice. I wish you were not quite so deaf. I've had to ask you twice.
It seems a shame, the walrus said, to play them such a trick, after we brought them out so far and made them trot so quick.
The carpenter said nothing but, the butter's spread too thick.
I weep for you, the walrus said. I deeply sympathize. With sobs and tears, he sorted out those of the largest size.
Oh, oysters, said the carpenter, you've had a pleasant run. Shall we be trotting home again? But answer there came none. And this was scarcely odd because they'd eaten every one. Thank you.
Next up, In the Bazaars of Hyderabad by Sarojini Naidu. In the Bazaars of Hyderabad is an early 20th century English poem, well known to Indian schools as part of their English curriculum. The poet Sarojini Naidu is famously known as the Nightingale of India. She was an independence activist and poet from Hyderabad, and the poem typifies the social and cultural life of the city. The poem was also written as part of the Swadeshi movement, where Indians decided to boycott European merchandise. In the Bazaars of Hyderabad by Sarojini Naidu, read by me, Susan Sudhir. What do you sell, O ye merchants? Richly your wares are displayed. turbans of crimson and silver, tunics of purple brocade, mirrors with panels of amber, daggers with handles of jade. What do you weigh, O ye vendors? Saffron, lentil, and rice. What do you grind, O ye maidens? Sandalwood, henna, and spice. What do you call, O ye peddlers? Chessmen and ivory dice. What do you make, O ye goldsmiths? Wristlet and anklet and ring. Bells for the feet of blue pigeons, frail as a dragonfly's wing. Girdles of gold for the dancers, scabbards of gold for the king. What do you cry, O ye fruitmen? Citron, pomegranate, and plum. What do you play, O ye musicians? Sitar, sarangi, and drum. What do you chant, O ye magicians? Spells for the eons to come. What do you weave, O ye flower girls, with tassels of azure and red? Crowns for the brow of a bridegroom, chaplets to garland his bed, sheets of white blossoms new gathered to perfume the sleep of the dead. Thank you.
A Small Pain in My Chest by Michael Mack, recited by Manasa Pillai and Srikanth. This is a poem that artistically captures the gruesome nature of the Vietnam War, dealing with the theme of violence, loss, trauma, and the question of patriotism. The impactful stanzas highlight the sadness and the grief of war through an interaction between a first-person narrator and a wounded soldier. The poem was first published in 1983. The soldier boy was sitting calmly underneath that tree. As I approached it, I could see him beckoning to me. The battle had been long and hard and lasted through the night, and scores of figures lay on the ground by the morning light.
I wonder if you did help me, sir. He smiled as best he could. A sip of water on this morn would surely do me good. We fought all day and fought all night with scarcely any rest. A sip of water, for I have a small pain in my chest.
As I looked at him, I could see the large stain on his shirt, all reddish brown from his warm blood mixed in with Asian dirt.
Not much, said he. I count myself more lucky than the rest. They're all gone, while I just have a small pain in my chest. Must be fatigue. He weakly smiled. I must be getting old. I see the sun is shining bright, and yet I'm feeling cold. We climbed the hill 200 strong, but as we cleared the crest, the night exploded, and I felt the small pain in my chest.
I looked around to get some aid. The only things I found were big, deep craters in the earth, bodies on the ground.
I kept on firing at them, sir. I tried to do my best, but finally sat down with this small pain in my chest. I am grateful, sir.
He whispered as I handed my canteen and smiled a smile that was, I think, the brightest that I've ever seen.
Seems silly that a man my size, so full of vim and zest, could find himself defeated by a small pain in my chest. What would my wife be thinking of her man so strong and grown, if she could see me sitting here too weak to stand alone? Could my mother have imagined, as she held me to her breast, that I did be sitting here one day with this pain in my chest? Can it be getting dark so soon?
He winced up at the sun.
It's growing dim, and I thought that the day had just begun. I think before I travel on, I'll get a little rest.
And quietly, the boy died from that small pain in his chest. I don't recall what happened then. I think I must have cried. I put my arms around him and I pulled him to my side. As I held him to me, I could feel our wounds were pressed, the large one in my heart against the small one in his chest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If was written at the end of the 19th century by Rudyard Kipling, when he was the Poet Laureate of the UK. Written as advice from a father to his son, poem strikes a chord in hearts universally, and it's been loved through the ages. Balaji Murthy and I, Nirupa, will recite If by Rudyard Kipling. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies. Or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet, don't look too good or talk too wise.
If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you have spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools.
If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart, nerve, and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on.
If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you will be a man, my son. Thank you.
The Louse and the Mosquito by Vikram Seth. This is a delightful poem by Vikram Seth based on an Indian legend. In the king's bed, Creep the louse lived in her ancestral house. They had dwelt here as of right for 3 decades, and each night she and her enormous brood drank the king's blood for their food. Once the signal came from Creep that the king was fast asleep, quietly, discreetly, they nipped, sipped, and drank away. Sons, grandsons, sisters, brothers, great-granddaughters, great-grandmothers, second cousins, and their wives thus pursued their gentle lives, lives of undisturbed delight, growing plump, smooth, and white. One day, a mosquito flew through the window. As he drew closer to the velvet bed, canopied with gold, he said,
Lovely, just the place for me. Ah, what perfume! Let me see. Rose, no jasmine, and the quilt, smooth as banks of Ganges silt. Let me test the bed springs now.
So he jumped up and somehow in a parabolic leap landed not too far from Creep.
Sir Mosquito, flap your wings, leave at once, this bed's the king's.
Who may you be, Lady Louse?
I'm the guardian of this house.
House?
This quilt, it's mine, said Creep. There's no place for you, Sir Leap.
Let me sleep here for one night, and I'll catch the morning flight.
Thus the sad Mosquito pleaded, and at last his prayers were heeded, for the tender-hearted Creep could not bear to watch him weep.
Well, come in, she said at last, but tonight you'll have to fast, for on no account may you biten, as we are trained to do. We can drink and cause no pain, loss of royal sleep or strain. You, I fear, would cause all three. I can't risk my family.
But the glib Mosquito cried,
Now you've let me come inside. Lady Louse, how can you be cold in hospitality? Just one bite, I ask no more, for I've learned from learned law that the royal blood contains remedies for aches and pains. Ginger, honey, sugar, spice, cardamom, and all things nice. Save me, I'm in broken health. Let me bite him once by stealth. He won't even shift or sigh. Cross my heart, hope to die.
Finally, the louse agreed. Right, she said, but pay close heed. Wait till wine, fatigue, or deep, dream-enriched, unbroken sleep has enveloped him. Then go, lightly lip his little toe.
Yes, 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 that's all, old hat, said Sir Leap. I know all that. Keep your stale advice, he smiled. Seriously, I'm not a child.
it was only afternoon, fairly early, fairly soon, when the king came for a snooze, doffed his crown, shirt and shoes, lay down on the bed and sighed.
The mosquito almost died from excitement, shock, and sweat.
No, no, the louse cried, no, not yet.
But too late! The self-willed bumbler, oh, if only he'd been humbler, rushing to the rash attack, leapt on the royal back, and with fierce, fiery sting, deeply dirked the dozing king. Help! A scorpion! A snake! Screamed the king, at once awake. I've been bitten. Search the bed. Find the strike and strike the creature dead.
When they made a close inspection, the mosquito foiled inspection, hidden in the canopy.
But the louse clan could not flee. All were killed without ado.
Meanwhile, the mosquito flew, looking out for further prey, humming mildly on his way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A. Milne is well known for his works for children. In this poem, The King's Breakfast, he explores the childlike behavior of an adult, in this case, the king. The King's Breakfast by A. Milne, recited by Tehzeeb Katari, Amira de Costa, and Arjun Chakravarti. The king asked the queen, and the queen asked the dairy maid, could we have some butter for the royal slice of bread?
The queen asked the dairy maid. The dairy maid said,
Certainly. I'll go and tell the cow now before she goes to bed.
The dairy maid, she curtsied and went and told the Alderney.
Don't forget the butter for the royal slice of bread. The Alderney said sleepily, oh, you'd better tell His Majesty that many people nowadays like marmalade instead. The dairymaid said, fancy, and went to Her Majesty. She curtsied to the Queen, and she turned a little red. Excuse me, Your Majesty, for taking off the liberty, but marmalade is tasty if it's very thickly spread.
The Queen said, oh, and went to His Majesty. Talking of the butter for the royal slice of bread, many people think that marmalade is nicer. Would you like to try a little marmalade instead?
The king said, bother. The king said, oh, dearie me. The king sobbed, oh, dearie me, and went back to bed. Nobody, he whimpered, could call me a fussy man. I only want a little bit of butter for my bread.
The Queen said, there, and went to the dairymaid.
The dairymaid said, there, and went to the shed. The cow said, there, I didn't really mean it. Here's milk for his porringer and butter for his bread.
The Queen took the butter and brought it to His Majesty.
The king said, butter, eh? And bounced out of bed. Nobody, he said, as he kissed her tenderly. Nobody, he said, as he slid down the banisters. Nobody, my darling, could call me a fussy man. But I do like a little bit of butter to my bread.
Thank you.
Next up is The Tiger by William Blake. The Tiger is a poem by visionary English poet William Blake and is often said to be the most widely anthologized poem in the English language. It consists entirely of questions about the nature of God and creation. The poem is an expression of marvel and wonder at the tiger and its fearsome power. Here is Tiger by William Blake, recited by Nigat and Prabha. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry?
In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire?
And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet?
What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp?
When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee?
Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? Thank you.
Thank you.
Warning by Jenny Joseph was written in 1961. It describes what the future has in store as one ages and throws off societal restraints and expectations. It's a humorous, tongue-in-cheek and fun way to remember not to take ourselves too seriously. When I'm an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat that doesn't go and doesn't suit me. I shall spend all my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells. I stickle on public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickle for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends to dinner and read the papers. But maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I'm old and start to wear purple. Thank you.
Lochinvar by Sir Walter Scott, recited by Monisha and Srikant. This poem is set in the age of chivalry. The brave young knight Lochinvar risks his life for his love and successfully abducts his beloved Ellen. Oh, young Lochinvar is come out of the west. Through all the wide border, his steed was the best. And save his good broadsword, and he weapons had none, he rode all unarmed, and he rode all alone. So faithful in love, and so dauntless in war, there never was a knight like young Lochinvar.
He staid not for brake, and he stopped not for stone. He swam the Eske river, where ford there was none. But ere he alighted at Netherby gate, the bride had consented, the gallant came late. For a laggard in love and a dastard in war was to wed the fair Ellen of brave Lochinvar.
So boldly he entered the Netherby hall, among bridesmen and kinsmen and brothers and all. Then spoke the bride's father, his hand on his sword, for the poor craven bridegroom said never a word. Oh, come ye in peace here, or come ye in war, or to dance at our bridal, young Lord Lochinvar? I long wooed your daughter, my suit you denied. Love swells like the Solway, but ebbs like its tide. And now I am come with this lost love of mine to lead but one measure, drink one cup of wine. There are maidens in Scotland more lovely by far that would gladly be bride to the young Lochinvar.
The bride kissed the goblet, the knight took it up. He quaffed off the wine, and he threw down the cup. She looked down to blush, and she looked up to sigh, with a smile on her lips and a tear in her eye. He took her soft hand ere her mother could bar.
Now tread we a measure, said young Lochinvar. So stately his form, and so lovely her face, that never a hall such a galliard did grace. While her mother did fret and her father did fume, and the bridegroom stood dangling his bonnet and plume, and the bridemaidens whispered, 'Twere better by far to have matched her fair cousin with young Lochinvar.
One touch to her hand and one word in her ear. When they reached the hall door and the charger stood near, so light to the croup the fair lady he sprung, so light to the saddle before her he sprung.
She's won, we are gone, over bank, book, and scar. They are fleet steeds that follow, quoth young Lochinvar. There was mounting among Grames of the Netherby clan, Fosters, Fenwicks, and Musgraves. They rode and they ran. There was racing and chasing on Canopy Lee. But the lost bride of Netherby never did they see.
So daring in love and so dauntless in war. Have you heard of gallant like young Lochinvar? Thank you.
Thank you.
The Owl and the Pussycat is a wonderful nonsense poem written by Edward Lear in the year 1871. Our final poem this evening will be The Owl and the Pussycat, recited by Arjun Chakravarti and myself, Tehzeeb Kotari.
The Owl and the Pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar. Oh, lovely pussy, oh, pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are. You are, what a beautiful pussy you are.
Pussy said to the owl, "You elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be married, too long we have tarried. But what shall we do for a ring?" They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows. And there in the wood, a piggywig stood with a ring at the end of his nose. His nose, with a ring at the end of his nose.
Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring? Said the piggy. I will. So they took it away and were married next day by the turtle who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon.
And hand in hand on the edge of the sand, they danced by the light of the moon. The moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon. Thank you.
So that was the final poem for the evening. Thank you all for being here. We would like to request you to put your hands together for all of the readers, actors today. I will start with Pradeep Kothari. Arjun Chakravarti. Amira De Costa. Hang on.
Thank you. Thank you, Shan. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Amira. Everyone.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Balaji Murthy.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, Shan.
Nikki Bolins.
Thank you very much.
Rothan Poncha. Yes, we'll put the details again. Susan Sudhir.
Thank you. It has been a real fun evening.
Sugun Thomas, who everyone might have started.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
Anybody?
Thank you.
Shrikant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nirupa Sundaravadana.
Thank you very much.
1 second, sorry. Monisha Ravishankar.
Thank you.
And Manasa Pillai.
Thank you. Thank you, team.
And Prabha.
Thank you all for being here and supporting the cause. Thank you, Shan.
That's the end. I'll just paste the details again. Thank you so much for attending. And we'll also put the YouTube link for those who missed it. The details are here in case you'd like to save them. I'll just go to gallery view, get everyone. Okay. I get one
you,
photo
Shan.
of everyone.
A big round of applause to Shan for organizing this.
Yes, thank you, Shan. This was possible only because of you.
No, because of you, everyone pulled it together. I thought today was okay. I'll stop recording. Smile, everyone.